everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, stressed out Christians who want to do more than just survive. I'm Liz Frericks, and this is my husband, Evan.
Good morning.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us today on this wonderful Opportunity Monday.
Yes, it is a wonderful start to a new week, and thank you for spending part of your time with us this week. We really appreciate that. If this episode is interesting to you, or if it helps your prayer life or makes you think about your faith in a slightly different way, please share this episode with a friend or family member. Tell them about the CSCs.
In case you missed the announcement from last week, we are going to be taking a hiatus from the podcast. We're not stopping our work with the CSCs because we still believe that they are extremely important for all Christians.
Yeah.
But we're going to focus our energies in some other directions.
That's
like
right.
A class.
Yeah.
And we'll see what else happens.
That's right. And our last episode of Epic Everyday, the podcast, will be on August 31st. And then there will be one complete year of weekday daily devotional shows. And those will always be available on iTunes or YouTube or Google or on our webpage. More than welcome to listen to those again. Tell friends about them and check our webpage and sign up for our email list if you want to know what we're up to and hear about the next cool thing before anybody else.
Yes. As you guys know, we do work our way through the CSCs. They are adaptations of Peter Ralston's Tai Chi principles, being calm, surrendered, centered, connected, and complete. And they really have been the difference for us between being in overwhelm mode and being able to thrive. So since it's Monday, our CSC of the day is being calm. And this week we thought we'd talk about prayer. So today we thought we'd talk about how God hears us.
Yeah, and the thing that steals our calm is kind of the opposite of that, right? When we feel alone, when we feel like, what's the point of praying? Because is anybody listening to it, right? I mean,
right.
It's a pretty lonely place to... Well, and even, so definitely for non-Christians, that's a lonely place. But even a lot of Christians, I think, may struggle with, like, does God hear my prayer? Is he really listening? Is prayer working?
Right, and how involved is he? Like, Does he actually hear my prayer and do something about it? Or does he just...
Does he just note it down in his notebook?
Yes.
Okay.
You prayed, check mark.
Or, this idea that prayer is a duty for Christians or something, but it's part of the relationship, and the whole point is that God's listening to us.
Right.
It's not just something we ought to do to be a good little Christian boy or girl.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's so hard when you're coming from a place where you think the weight of the world is on your shoulders. That idea that God doesn't listen, that we have to somehow make things work. I know I can get sucked into that just in my day-to-day life. Mostly because I get overwhelmed by the problem. So, my whole vision is taken up with, here's the situation. Like the story of Peter walking on the ocean, or on the sea. Jesus is walking in the water across the lake, and he tells Peter to come out of the boat. And Peter is standing on the water, and there's waves and everything. And at first he's fine, but then as soon as he starts noticing the waves and the wind, he starts sinking and freaking out.
It's such a bizarre story. I mean, walking on something like that, you make, I don't know. I just wonder about how was Jesus standing, like, did the waves kind of wash through him like you do when you're standing on the shore and the waves might come up to your knees or something?
Yeah.
Or was he like going up and down, staying on top and bone dry on every single wave? But anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's a pretty amazing story.
The point is, though, that Peter falters when he's focused on the wind and the waves. And I think it's easy for us to do that. We focus on the problem, whatever our circumstances are that are difficult or whatever is causing our stress,
Yeah, well, yeah, and that definitely leads to this idea of like, well, I've got to figure out my situation myself. Any solution's going to come from within me, and it's up to me.
Right.
My own, determination and willpower and might. And that's pressure on ourselves, and it really is devastating.
Seriously, I think we don't even realize how much stress we carry on a day-to-day basis just because we're accustomed to it. Mm-hmm. It becomes our new normal and we live with it. I was actually thinking about Psalm 116, which is such a great psalm if you're stressed out. Like, it's just so great because he's talking about how stressed out he is and how God is present in the land of the living. It's not like we have to wait till we're dead before we see his goodness. I'm going to start in verse 1. It says, I love the Lord, for he heard my voice. He heard my cry for mercy. Because he turned his ear to me, I will call on him as long as I live. And I love that because, I mean, just this idea that, that we're blessed just by the fact that God even hears us.
Yeah.
If you look in 1 Kings 18, that's where the whole story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal occurs. And it's just so ridiculous in a lot of ways. Elijah issues this challenge to have the prophets of Baal assemble and to prove whether Baal is God or whether God is God and, who they should worship. And so the prophets of Baal set up an altar and there are 450 prophets of Baal. And it says that, the deal was whoever sent down fire from heaven was the one who was really God. So they put the bull on the altar, get it all prepared. And verse 26 says, then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. Oh, Baal, answer us, they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar they had made. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. Shout louder, he said. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. And
no one's listening.
Yeah, well, and I think sometimes as Christians we forget how amazing it is that God hears us, that he does listen to us, and how just revolutionary that is. That this is a God who is, who created the entire universe. Like, this is somebody, think about it if you were able to have instant access to the president. Like, you'd have to be pretty special to get that,
Yeah.
And you would know that you were taking up someone very important. You're taking up their time. And with God, fortunately, because he has infinite amounts of time, he can give us as much time as we need. And he can simultaneously give everyone the amount of time that they need. But, it's amazing that we have a God that listens. Mm-hmm. And he so clearly says that he does. In Matthew 7, Jesus says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds. And to him who knocks the door will be opened. Which of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? I mean, this is the answer to the whole, is God listening or not? Like Jesus just says, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. And
like we said at the beginning, it's not just listening, but active listening. God is responding when he listens.
Right, yeah. He gives according to the need, not just like, hey, here's this. You asked for a fish, but I'm giving you a snake,
Yeah, I mean, and if anybody is struggling with this, a great place to read is the Psalms. I mean, Liz was reading Psalm 116, but there's many Psalms that talk about this. I mean, there's a couple of them here. Psalm 65:2 says, all humanity will come to you, the one who hears prayer. And Psalm 15:29 says, the Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. And there's another one, he hears their cries for help and saves them. So, God, it's all throughout. Very encouraging. You can see a whole list of these verses if you go to your Bible app and just do a search for Hear Prayer. And there'll be a whole list of things to look at and be encouraged by.
Yeah, that is one way that we can get back our calm. We don't have to deal with the weight of the world on our shoulders. We don't have to make situations come out okay. And we don't have to wonder whether God's hearing us like Baal. We don't have to go crazy trying to make God listen.
To get his attention.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't need to cut ourselves or anything. Don't have to prove our devotion. We just have to come before God and be open and ask.
Yep. Just talk and listen. It's amazing that it's not this big elaborate thing.
Which we're going to talk more about on Thursday. As always, pick whether today is going to be awesome or not, whether you're going to strengthen those neural pathways to see the good things in your life or to see the not so good things in your life, because it is totally up to you. We love you guys and we are praying for you. Thanks to everybody that's been listening to the show and sharing the show. We really appreciate it. If you have found this episode helpful, please do share it. And come back tomorrow and we're going to talk about how sometimes God says no.
Yeah. I mean, he listens and answers, and we got to accept the answer, don't we?
Yes.
We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Have a great Monday.